I just pressed recording. So do you want to check it there? Yeah. Recording in progress. Awesome.
Just because I know it's going to be really loud.
I think Karen's going to come back in a second. I think she's just stuck down. So yeah, that's all right. We can start. Yeah, I've hit record. I think. Let me just double check. Yeah, it's recording. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to SARS March meeting for 2024. It's lovely to see you all here face to face, as well as having Zoom tonight as well.
Let me just Zoom.
Yeah. I don't think they'll think of me. It was actually 4 years to March 2020 was the last time SARS had their meeting here. So at the mechanics. So it's so good to see you all.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah. So
thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Great. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome Christine Thomas. So for anyone that doesn't know Christine, which I don't think there's a lot.
It's very formal, isn't it? Call me Chris.
Christine is Christina Stargazer. Right? So she is a consultant, researcher, and writer who practices astrology and numerology in New South Wales. Christine teaches astrology to a professional level, facilitates workshops, and presents to a variety of the community and social groups. Christine has spoken to the Australian FAA conferences, Breaking Down the Borders online conference, and she runs a South Coast astrology group.
Used to.
Right. So she also specialises in horary astrology, which is the art of asking a question, and is trained to facilitate circle work. Wow. So she's currently sitting on the committee of the Astrology Association for New South Wales. So tonight we're very fortunate and appreciate that she's travelled here so we can listen to her in person. So welcome aboard, Christine. I'll hand it over to you. Okay, so put your hands together. Welcome to Spring.
Thank you. Thank you, Cheryl. It's a lovely introduction. Wow. Yeah, wow, we're breaking a drought, man. The 24th of February 2020 was actually the last time I worked in the city, and I caught the train back to the Illawarra where I live, and I remember being on the train seeing this dude with biosecurity on his shirt, and I thought, that's weird. And here we are, we're back. So it's been an interesting 4 years. Let's not rattle on about that. So I'd like to actually thank everyone for coming out tonight. It's really important, I think, for community. Being an Aquarian, I love community. So it's really important. And Cheryl alluded to the South Coast Astrology Group. So we're just on hold for the moment. We haven't quite started back, but we probably will do something. That's the Wollongong group. Okay. So if we could just say, this talk sort of fell into my lap. Actually, that's a little bit dark, guys. Can I? Yeah, that's better. Yeah, thank you. I like to see people's faces. So what happened was, and I looked it up this morning as I was eating my cereal, on the 28th of November, 2023, at 1:12 p.m, I sent Cheryl a message asking if she'd heard of the name of a Sydney-based famous astrologer that I'd never heard of. And that's how this talk came to be. So I'll get to that in the end. Okay, so it's written in the stars. There's no rhyme or reason. Like typically everything I do, Gemini moon, Aquarian sun, Sagittarian rise, it's in a hurry. I'm like, oh God, I've got to do that presentation. So over the last week, I've prepared and it's become something that I didn't anticipate. And in fact, on Monday afternoon, the piece of information that I needed to fit together to the puzzle fell into my lap. And it made me realize when we practice astrology, we are connected into something far greater and far more divine than what I actually think we really know. It's really amazed me. Like, that's the one thing. Knitting, crocheting, I was bored with it very quickly. But astrology, as you all know, it never ceases to make you have the aha moment. It excites me every day. of the things that I see happen. So this is the known and not so known sun sign astrologers based on my question. And I thought that's an interesting thought. So what I did this morning was I quickly put the actual time in, because it was like I was asking a horary on that day. And I looked at the chart, and lo and behold, on the day that I sent Cheryl that message, the North Node was at the same degree that Mercury has retrograded at. That's a bit crazy. Anyway, here we are. We're on track. All right. Now, like I need to change my, there we are. So the word horoscope, it comes from the Greek word hora, meaning time or hour, hora, and scopos, meaning observer. So it's to observe. So sun sign astrology, I like this little magazine article. It's the front page of The Sun, dated 3rd of March, 1998. Most accurate horoscope, most accurate ever horoscope. And I laugh, world's top astrology scientists. We were scientists back in 1998. Some people would argue that. So famous sun sign astrologers, 100 predictions and prophecies. So it says Prince William, crowned king, Chelsea Clinton, her divorced parents, Tom Cruise weds wife number 3, and Oprah Winfrey has a baby. Still waiting for that one. So that was the 22nd of May, 2001. So who do you know? When I say what sun sign astrologers pop to your mind, who do you think of? Molly Talbot. Beautiful. I would have included Molly's data, but I didn't have it handy. Any other? Jessica Adams? Yep. Anyone else? Sorry? Christine Broadbent? Yep. Someone said Jonathan Kainer. Sorry, who's?
Sorry,
Alan Oaken.
Gary Wiseman.
Sorry, Dane. Can I just hear on screen? Sorry, what was that, guys, out there?
The late Gary Wiseman. He used to do a sun sign
The late
column.
Gary Wiseman, yes. I think I actually met Gary a few times. He used to come down to the Illawarra and do those wonderful expos. They were great fun. He started them on, on a cruise ship. Is that what?
No, in Sydney.
Oh, in Sydney. Okay, right. Anyone else? Anyone else? I heard someone say Richard Sterling.
Yeah, Richard.
Richard?
That did the moonology. Yes, and Yasmin Boland.
Yasmin Boland. Beautiful. Okay, so you've got a fair idea. Athena Starwoman. Beautiful. Okay. So this famous sun sign astrologer, Milton Black. I laughed because when I looked on his website, there's his number if anyone would like to call him. He's got his mobile number on there. It's pretty exciting. Yeah, he did. I was going to call him and say, hey, Milton, I'm talking about you tonight if you want to come and have a little look. So Milton Black, this is off his website. So he's rated as one of the world's most sought after professional astrologers. Now, when it's your own website, you can write that sort of stuff, but he is very sought after. He's very well known. He was in the top 10 admired astrologers worldwide. And he published his works in the Sydney Morning Herald up to 2001. So he was renowned for his uncanny, accurate forecasts on world market and economics. So like a lot of the guys, like when we think of sun sign astrologers and astrologers in general, they're into mundane. Like personally, I feel like it's mundane, but anyway, but there definitely, we have some mundane astrologers in this country that are very well known and very famous. Milton Black is one of them. So he was born on the 21st of November 1941, so he's about to turn 83 this November. He was renowned for his uncanny forecasts, which, as I've already said. Currently, he writes for The New Idea and features in Australia's top-selling weekly magazine. He wrote the weekly numbers for Women's Day for a 10-year period, Family Circle, Moon Planting Guide for Better Homes and Garden. He predicted weekly global stock market trends and investment tips according to the stars in his column with John Fairfax, Money Manager F2 Internet Services for a period of 4 years. his much sought after weekly star column in the Australian New Idea magazine for 16 years. More recently, Women's World USA published a 2-page spread on Australian Dreamtime horoscopes to readers. He was introduced to national radio and television in 1974. So a lot of sun sign astrologers cross over and do radio and do TV as well back in the day. He was invited to appear as a regular guest on the ever-popular Mike Walsh show. Anyone remember that show? On the Nine Network. So he was on the Don Lane show, the Today show, the Midday show with Darren Hinch, Kerry Kennelly, all that. ABC Report, Good Morning Australia, Bert Newton, Sunrise, it goes on and on and on. Very popular in that sort of era, because basically the only way astrologers had to get their stuff out there was to be able to be in the papers or magazines or radio, television. That was the only medium that they had. Was also recently associated with Susie Ellerman. So that's not so recently, but this is all, like I said, directly off his website. Very popular, Milton Black, but someone that's never really resonated with me. And it's interesting because if anyone read my blurb for tonight's talk, it actually was Frank Clifford that said, when you do sun sign astrology, you need to know someone in the game. And that's a massive part of what used to happen back then. Okay, so this is Milton Black's chart. And I was just sort of looking at whether there were any common themes or threads. So 21st of November, because it's on his website, it's got an accurate time. So I've given it a AA rating. And when you Google him, everything reports him as being a famous astrologer. So astrologically, if you go back through history, mostly media astrologers, columnists were the wealthiest, most well-known. Not someone at home sitting there doing charts, at the rate of knots. That was not how you made your money back then. That's starting to change. Okay, so here's a Sun Scorpio in the second house. Says something. Sun opposition, the Uranus Saturn conjunction. Moon in Sag. You have to be flamboyant. If you're going to be on the TV, you've got to have some sort of sense of flamboyancy, I think. You've got to have that Sagittarian type of energy. Third house moon. Again, you've got to have I've noticed the strong third house, ninth house theme. Third house communication, ninth house publishing. Got to be strong. Moon opposite Jupiter. It's pretty tight. Jupiter in the ninth. Jupiter's at home in its ninth, so you've got to find strength in the chart. Libra ascendant, so he had that appeasing quality where he's very, like he would be personable. People could relate to him and find him easy to approach. Mercury in Scorpio had it's in the first house, so had a deep probing thinking mind, wanted to get to the depths of what he was researching. Hence the reason I think the Mercury Scorpio, where possibly he was able to do all that forecasting, financial forecasting, he was able to dig to the depths of what he was researching. So interesting, what I found was a common theme. Transits to watch. So transiting Uranus is coming to Saturn. Okay, so that Saturn-Uranus, transiting Uranus in the sky is going to cross over that Saturn and over that Uranus and oppose his sun. Okay, so the guy's going to be 83 this year. I don't want to make any wild predictions, but he might have a change. Let's face it. So we will see. He might take his phone number off his website or something because he's sick of being busy. But like some astrologers, like they have got like mile-long lists people wanting to have their chart done. He has got a record, I can't remember the exact amount, but a record amount of clients that he has seen, more than anyone else I researched. Okay, second famous astrologer. I'm just going to cut through these a little bit because I've got some stuff I want to talk to you about at the end. So famous sun sign. Sorry, guys, can I just ask how long are we doing this for? Till 9:30? Is that what I read? Yeah. Oh, okay, 7 to 8:30. All right, if it goes a bit over, but we'll see. I'll try and stick to the 8:30. Okay, no worries. Sorry, guys, I just got some messages here. Charming ascendant, yes, definitely. Written in Stardust, I love that. Okay, Athena Stumble, yeah, Ed Tamplin, yeah, okay. Welcome, okay, so just got to keep an eye on the messages because I'm driving the bus as well. I'm doing the presentation and looking after the passengers, what I'll tell you. So, John Weir, anyone recognize that name? No? No one. Right. So, most respected and well-known astrologer. And everyone's shaking their head. Wouldn't have a clue. A lot of astrologers actually change their name, aka Christina Stargazer. John Weir, most respected. I can't change the screen. Why is it not changing? Oh, there it is. Richard Sterling. So he changed his name from John Weir to Richard Sterling. Okay. There he is. Isn't that a formidable look? I love it. Most respected, not the most famous. He became, so what I was doing was just Googling their names and finding out how they were classified. Now we've got the most respected and well-known astrologer. Not my words. Okay, so Richard Sterling, it was, and I can honestly say this whole talk in a week has been all about divine providence. It is 100%. I have been on some mystical, magical journey that has been very exciting, and I want to share it with you. So when I was a little girl, I grew up with my mum and dad, and we lived in the Blue Mountains for a period of time. And on not this Sunday, the weekend before, I saw this photo and I said to my sister, I sent it to her, I said, does this house look familiar to you? She goes, yeah, that's weird. I said, okay, she recognised it too. For some reason, it looked familiar to me. Didn't know why, had no clue. So Richard Sterling started a career as an accomplished concert pianist. That's another thing I found, that a lot of the astrologers that were quite famous also played tickled the ivories, as they say. He lived in London for 7 years and studied at the Conservatorium of Music, where he befriended Joan Sutherland, Australian. Okay. Divine providence came into play when Richard met Dr. William Tucker. Anyone remember Dr. William Tucker? He was the astrologer to the royal family. Did you know that? And with whom he was fortunate enough to take master classes in astrology with. So Richard learnt to the art of astrology with Dr. William Tucker, who was in England. So at the insistence of his wife, Ariel, he returned to Australia in 1963 and was determined to make it big in astrology. And within 12 months was a guest on the Australian television show 7 Days. Anyone remember that? I've got some footage at home that Chris Turner gave me years ago on video, VHS. I want to get it digitalised and see, but there was some television show that she also appeared on. So I'm curious if it was the same thing. And so we all know I love Chris Turner. So it was hosted by Anne Devison, where he used astrology to analyse mystery guests. Now, when I'm teaching, like some people don't like this technique, but I can tell you, after you've been learning astrology for a while, you sort of lose a bit of your self-confidence. You think, am I getting it right? Am I making this up? Is it because I know the person? So what I like to do in my classes is from time to time, we look at mystery charts. And I do it all the time, even with horary. I've done it a number of times. Because what happens is once you start to learn that you are actually getting stuff right and you don't know who the person is, and then when that identity is revealed to you, you know what happens to your confidence as an astrologer? You start to actually get traction in what you're doing. So it's a good fun game to play on a rainy day. Get another astrologer and play who's the chart. So his career actually took off doing that. So I decided to I'll come back to that in a second. So yes, this house was familiar to me for some reason, and I could recognize it and thought, yep, it's definitely something going on there. So this first Australian television astrology program on Channel 7 was called Stars in Your Life, and Richard was the astrologer that actually did that mystery guest thing. So he also wrote Gardening by the Stars. So there's just a little snippet of information there. Phases of the moon. All of the astrologers that I researched all talk about the importance of the moon, how important the moon is. Now, when I write a daily radio script, and Molly, you would know too, and anyone else that's done any sun sign stuff, the moon really is what you've got to work with, is the key thing that changes daily. It makes different aspects daily. Like I have to do 365 days of script writing. It's a lot of work. So imagine Richard's excitement when Channel 7 agreed to host his own astrology show for the very first time on television in a daily program called Stars in Your Life. And it ran from 1965 to 1967. The audience loved his flamboyance and warm-hearted personality, and he was perfect for television, and he was very popular. Like I think someone mentioned Richard Sterling. In the 70s, Richard was offered a regular TV spot on the Don Lane Show and later the Bob Rogers radio show on 2UZ in Melbourne. 3UZ in Melbourne. Sorry. I'm looking at 17 different things. Sorry, I'll just check that because it's distracting. I always felt that he had an aura and appeared of, yes, absolutely, Sue, you're right. Richard Sterling. Yes, and he used to have a TV segment years ago. Thank you. Okay. Richard had a huge following through his astrology columns in the Women's Day, and over a 14-year period with 25 years with the Australian Women's Weekly, he worked very closely with Ida Buttrose, editor-in-chief. Okay. Why is it slow to go? What's it changing? Okay. So this, like I said, this image was Gardening by the Stars, Richard Sterling, published in the Australian Women's Weekly on the 15th of December, 1982, and it was on page 86. And again, like I said, it's really important that you think about and like as I was researching and reading, what he used to sort of say, he called it the Sterling way. So he was actually, someone said to him, I forget who it was exactly, said to him that you need to change your name to Richard Sterling because Sterling means money, sterling, money, and no one's going to pay attention to John Weir. So that was like, and even for me becoming Christina Stargazer, there's a bit of a story in why your name comes to be. So it was really funny because at the last AANSW meeting, I knew that this talk was pending, and I was like, oh God, how am I going to handle this? I've got no information. Everything I've researched about this particular astrologer that I was going to prepare and base my talk on tonight kept coming up with nothing. Like, seriously, I'm pretty good on the net, but I could not find a damn thing. So this book happened to be, like anyone that's been to a New South Wales meeting will know, there's generally a pile of books on a table that someone's either passed away or bequeathed or donated or whatever. And I looked across, now the corner of my eye, I spot the Australian Women's Weekly complete book of astrology. So I snatched it and I grabbed it and I read his forward in the front of his book. And I thought, rightio, this is where I need to go with this. I need to research all sun sign astrologers, not just this particular person that I was looking for information for. He was born on the 12th of June, 1926. And I laughed when I saw the book because I thought, oh my God, like for me, getting married back at this time in the 80s, these books were all the go. And I made the fatal error of buying the Women's Weekly birthday cake book. Oh my God. I thought, I hope I haven't done a similar thing with the Women's Weekly complete book of astrology because I'll oh dear. So the complete book of astrology by Richard Sterling, it was recommended retail $3.98, published by the Australian Women's Weekly. So that was my sign and my clue into this presentation, and that's where I started. So this is Richard Sterling's chart. Now, I could not, for the love of money, find, or the love of anything, find Richard Sterling's birth data. I looked high and I looked low, and I found that he was born in 1926, but that's all I could find. I challenge you to research it. However, through a series of events, which I'll explain in a minute, I found out that he was born on the 12th of June 1926 in a place in central western New South Wales called Cowra. How all this information came to me, I swear, there has been total divine intervention. No question, no ifs, no buts. So he has a Gemini sun. Makes sense in the 10th. He's got Sun applying trine to Jupiter. Sun applying quincunx to Saturn. Now, that's one thing I have noticed in all the charts, and like Molly, you'll know yourself, the discipline that is involved in writing a column. Some days I think I've got no words. I know it's hard to believe with my Gemini moon. And like you asked Karen in the way up in the car, did you? I don't think you got to say anything. I was like, oh. So I got a lot of words, but some days, because of the transits or whatever, you just got nothing. Molly, do you have a similar thing? Oh, okay. Oh my God. It's a daily thing. God, give me my daily break. Yeah. So Moon applying conjunction to Pluto and also to the North Node. Thought that was interesting. For those of you that don't know, I probably tend to sway more to sidereal these days. I'm going to the dark side in all areas and aspects. But that's because everyone's so far away from that right now. I'll just stick with my, hey, how are you going? I'll just stick with my my tropical astrology. Yes, Bob?
Time.
The time is 12 p.m. And the reason why I put 12 p.m. because it's an untimed chart. So you'll see that should actually have an X rating, not a double A, so my bad. But when I don't know somebody and they're quite famous, I generally give them a 12 p.m. chart because you would expect their sun to be out there or up there. So just be mindful of you can see where I don't think I put any houses in the description because it's not timed. Okay, Mercury separating trine to Jupiter. Mercury square Mars Uranus. And Jupiter separating opposition Neptune. Now, I think there's something Jupiter separating opposition to Neptune. Let me see that in my mind. Jupiter separating opposition to Neptune. 12th house Neptune. What do we know about 12th house Neptune? Someone who's very psychic. Not only did he do astrology, he did palmistry, he did lots of other things, not just astrology. And in that book, which I've got with me if anyone wants to have a look at it, you can see that he did lots of other things. Again, here we go again. Transiting Uranus opposite natal Saturn. Again, it's the second astrologer where I'm seeing that similar thing so far. All right, so this is Dr. William Tucker. I haven't put his chart up too much because I'll show you in a minute. So this was the guy in the UK that actually taught Richard Sterling his craft, who he did a masterclass with when he was in the UK. So William Tucker, British writer, lecturer and astrology teacher. Some of his noted works are Astrology for Every Man in 1960, Astromedical Diagnosis in 1959, and Astronomy for Students of Astrology, with a total of over 10 books. Now, I cannot recommend doing astronomy enough for astrologers because sometimes we don't understand the mechanics of the planets when we learn about astrology. I think it's vitally important that you just get some basic understanding of astronomy. That's just my personal recommendation. You don't have to, but I think it's significant and important. So he was born on the 19th of the 11th, 1896 at 8:19 a.m. London. I was that excited when I found the data. I was beside myself. He died on the 9th of December, 1981. So he was 85 when he passed away. His cause of death was unspecified. So he's got Sun, Mercury, Saturn, Uranus, Scorpio, ascendant. I'll show you the chart in a minute. Sun, quincunx, Mars, North Node Aquarius. So I saw a lot of North Node Aquarius action, a lot of action in Gemini, obviously, Aquarius, obviously, Uranus, but all very strong Saturns. And I think too, because that requires the discipline that it is. Like I remember in 2010 when Rick Levine was in Brisbane and he was speaking at the conference. And after the conference, he came down to Wollongong and we hosted him and we had a day with Rick, and it was awesome. And I spent a week, like just Rick and I in the car driving around. I was like, I thought I was in heaven. If you're watching Rick, it's good to see it. Anyway, I had so much fun. But we stayed at the Nantian Temple in Wollongong, and trying to get Rick in there was like trying to break into Alcatraz. But he had to get home at a particular time because his work requires him to be so disciplined. And it wasn't until I met Rick and spent time with him that I really understood how important it is to have that strong. I'm like, stuff it, do 2 tomorrow night. And he's like, no. And we're having this beautiful meal and in Shell Harbour and this beautiful restaurant. He's going, I've got to go. I said, don't forget about it. Have another red wine and, let's have another conversation. But it's really important that you've got that strong Saturn. Molly, where have you got Saturn in your chart?
First house.
First house. Thank you. Yeah, beautiful. Say no more. So just to verify my findings. So Jupiter, Virgo, midheaven, Mars, Neptune, Pluto, Gemini. So you had a stellium in Gemini. Transiting Uranus is opposing his natal Saturn. That's number 3. Third person. Third interesting astrologer. What that means, we'll find out. Okay, so this is William's chart in the middle. Can everyone see that, or is it too small? So William's chart is in the middle, obviously, because he is the oldest. And generally, you want to put the older person in the middle. Sometimes I see people put the younger person in the middle, and why that doesn't work is because you'll muck up your transits and it'll be wrong in your head. So whilst it's okay to do a bit of a quick comparison to see where we're impacting each other for synastry, totally put the older person in the middle. And so on the outside is Richard Sterling's chart, and it's untimed. So the one that I'm interested in is that Richard, his sun was on William's Neptune. Richard's sun trined William's North Node. Like that's a seriously interesting stellium. Now, similar degrees to Milton Black, Richard and William both had Saturn almost lined up, strong Saturns. Neptune on the South Node, Jupiter sort of with the North Node, lots of 27s and 28s. And again, like I said, when you think about like sidereal astrology, when planets get into those later degrees, like at the moment today, Neptune and Venus are conjunct at 27 degrees Pisces. To me, that's proper Pisces. Tropically and sidereally, they're both in Pisces, strong energy. That's how I like to look at it. Okay, so Moon Taurus with the Venus, there were some strong connections there. William had his Jupiter on the midheaven. This was an astrologer that was born in 1896 to the royal family. Ronald Reagan and Nancy, they had their own private astrologer. I think over the years, if we think about the history of astrology, the only people that really could afford the astrologer was the king and the queen. Are we going to win the battle? Am I going to have another heir to the throne? And what else was there? Will I be king? Will I be queen? Yeah. Okay. Uranus, he's got Uranus, like again, those ladder degrees, I keep seeing those ladder degrees, 27, 28, 29, which is interesting because when you think about William Lilly, he always talks about when things are 28, 27, 28, 29, things are not safe to judge. Like, those later degrees are really significant, I feel. I kept seeing it over and over again. So Sterling was the Women's Weekly Astrologer for many years. He would not just write its regular star columns. He also did articles such as Gardening by the Stars. Sterling also focused his gaze on the royal family for the weekly, with some of his predictions proving eerily correct. He fell short of the mark when divining in August 1981 that Prince Charles and then Lady Diana Spencer might have difficulty starting a family. He did say that Charles might sometimes find it difficult to adjust to married life. Well, isn't that the truth? Depends who he was married to. Seems quite okay now. In the same article, he predicted the pair would have periods of strong emotional conflict, and in a horoscope cast for Prince William, printed in July 1982, he forecast the young prince would face some extremely adverse circumstances in 1997, the year Princess Diana was killed in a car accident. So again, to be a good sun sign astrologer, you have to make some eerily correct predictions. Okay. Once you get one foot in the door, one good prediction, you're on fire. You're away. Everyone wants to know you. Okay. Sterling and the late Athena star woman were probably Australia's best known astrologers. I didn't write that. That was what was out there in information land. So his books included Astrology Under the Southern Cross, written with Doris Greaves. Now, for anyone that knows Gloria Lawrence, the astrologer down in Melbourne, is she in Melbourne? I think so, or South Australia, I can't remember. So Gloria, I think, studied under Doris Greaves. So she would probably have Doris's birth data. And I, like at some point I could have gone, hey, Gloria, can I have her data? And I'm sure she would have shared it with me. But I just wanted to totally focus on sun sign astrologers. I'm sure Doris might have written a column or two. Some of us do. So he wrote Astrology with the Sterling Way, which is interesting. The Richard Sterling Way, sorry, and previously mentioned the Complete Book of Astrology, which is the one I showed that was published by the Women's Weekly. Richard Sterling, one of Australia's best-known astrologers in the golden age of sun sign. So they refer to that period, 60s, 70s, 80s, as the golden age of sun signs. He died in a Katoomba hospital in the New South Wales Blue Mountains, and I thought, he lived in the Blue Mountains. Okay. That's crazy. So did I. Didn't think any more of it. I think when I've talked to Chris Turner before, like Chris Turner and John Clark had the Sydney School of Astrology, and at one stage they would have like 60. Sorry. Yes. Who did? John did. Yes. Oh wow. Okay. I didn't know that, Molly. Chris would know that, and I actually, like, when I get a minute, I'll have a chat to Chris about it, because I found his the whole thing just like so, like I said, divine providence, blow my neck. Anyway, so Chris and John had the school. Chris said something like they had up to 60 to 70 students a week. I got 56 students in my school. That's a lot of students every week. It was the heyday of astrological happenings in Australia, at least. So then I found this in the Sydney Morning Herald. Richard Sterling, 1926 to 2013, dearly loved husband of joy. I thought, oh, that's funny. I'm sure I read in that book that he attributed his wife, or he said his wife Ariel was, he appreciated that she was so patient during him writing that Women's Weekly book. I thought, okay, he's been married twice. Well-known astrologer and pianist, died after a long illness on the 19th of April, 2013, at the Katoomba Hospital, which is where my sister was born. We are inviting Richard's, and it says we are inviting Richard's friends that would like to reminisce and pay their respects to take a walk through his beloved winter garden at 7 Cliff Drive, Echo Point. I was like, no way. On Saturday, the 27th of April, between 1 and 4 p.m. So what do? You get on Google Maps and you go 7 Cliff Drive, Echo Point, and up came that house that I'd showed my sister. So I thought, we walk past that house every day, my mum, my sister and I, every day and back. And I said to a friend, I said, if I'd have known Richard Sterling was there, I would have been excited at 7, I'm sure. Like, seriously. So this winter garden intrigued me. So I Googled it. And the winter garden, it's actually, the house is Richard Sterling's Blue Mountain house sells for $1.65 million. So the Blue Mountains home and of the late astrologer was sold for a Katoomba residential record. Some 1.65 million was paid for the cliff-top Katoomba home ahead of its scheduled auction in March. The former Australian Women's Weekly columnist who died in 2013 paid $16,000 for the home overlooking the Jamison Valley around 49 years ago in 1964. Now, I know you're not going to believe it, but I was born in 64. So I started to see all these crazy synchronistic things happening. It's only been a week. I'm still asking my friends. I'm like, I'm starstruck.
You know what date mine is?
Sorry?
You know what date?
Jane, honestly, it's so hard to find information. It's really tricky. So like I've been like scratching to find things. However,
You should have scratched on his door. It was his toy when it you in.
this beautiful woman. So when I researched the address, I find out that it is now a well-being retreat in the Blue Mountains. And I thought, you know what? Christina Stargazer started teaching on the 27th of April, and Richard Sterling opened his gardens to the public on the 27th of April. So I'm booking in there. So I get on and I booked myself in. Yep, booked in. Beautiful, terrific. Going to have 5 days in the Blue Mountains. I deserve it. We need a break. Holiday time. So I put all my details in. Next minute, I get an email saying, "Oh, you're staying. Do you mind? Oh, would you please call me?" I was like, "Oh God, there's something wrong with my booking. It's my credit card bounced." Anyway, I rang up the next day and spoke to this lovely woman who owns the property and has vowed to maintain its existence as Richard had it. So she rang me and I said, "Oh, is there something wrong with my booking?" And she said, "No, I noticed you're an astrologer." I was like, "Oh, yeah." And she said, I'm a medium and I work with Richard in spirit. And he's been asking for an astrologer to come to the property. So I'll be going up to meet with her to chat about a few things. I don't know what, but which is rather exciting. I'm quite like it'd be fun just to be there. She rang me this morning on the 27th of April. I'll be there. So she rang me this morning and she said, "Will it be we could do something in the garden?" Because then what I went on to discover, so it was actually through this lovely woman who told me all the places that I could find information about Richard, because she had a lot of information herself. So all the birth data and the story about his wives and his children, not his children, his wife had a child, he never had any children. All the things that he aspired to. So she showed me this beautiful map of his own hand-drawn garden where he's created his astrology garden. And she said, "I want you to come and have tea with me in the garden." I was like, I can hardly wait. I could go on the Sagittarian walk and down the Gemini stairs and across to the Aquarian promenade. One of my friends goes, "Why is the promenade so big?" I said, "It's the Aquarian spot. That's where the whole group hang out. There's the barbecue and there's the hot tub," and it was so cool. I'm so excited. So this is the actual view from the veranda on the apartment called Cloud 9. So what she's done is she's divided the property into 3 apartments. So you can, anyway, I'm looking forward to spending some time up there and getting to know her a lot better. Because in a week, I can't tell you how many times actually she's going to come tonight, but she said, "I've got a new kitchen being installed," so she's like, "I can't come down," but she was going to come down for this. So I'm recording it for her. Okay, so this is actually the beloved winter garden of Richard Sterling, thanks to the lady who owns it now. May his memory continue to shine like the stars he so often studied. So when you look out that balcony, out that veranda, you've got a 180-degree panoramic view of the sky. What a fantastic place for an astrologer to live. And that is the Leo gazebo, of course. So I love it. I can't wait. So Richard Sterling and Athena Starwoman, Australia's 2 most well-known astrologers. So Athena Starwoman, close to my heart. when I started, because I got a little opportunity to work on local radio in Wollongong, and they said to me, "You've got to have a name. You can't be Christine Thomas. That's just boring." So I ummed and ahed and ummed and ahed and ummed and ahed for months and months and months. And the announcer rang me. He goes, "Hey, Athena Starwoman died yesterday. Why don't you become Christina Stargazer?" And I was like, "Yeah, that'll do." So I jumped in the car, drove into town, registered my business name, and got on the air by Monday. So I did it on the Friday, got on air on the Monday. So I love Athena Starwoman. Internationally, she was known internationally as Miss Starwoman. So astrology runs in the family for Athena Starwoman. Everyone, that's a very common, well-known logo. So she was known as a media astrologer, but she would like to refer to herself as an astrology journalist. She wrote 5 books. One, we could find out there was conflicting information. 1 or 2 were written with Deborah Gray. One of them was definitely written with her, but one of them seemed to have a forward. So I was like, I'm not sure if they were co-written. I didn't have enough time to, like, a week's not long to prepare. Radio and TV appearances, again, wrote for the Daily Telegraph from 1978 to 1988. So you'll notice in Richard Sterling's information you may not remember, but he wrote till 1978. So she actually took over from Richard Sterling in writing in the Daily Telegraph. Raised in Melbourne, she moved to New York in 1988 following a message in a dream. So it's like the lady that owns the property. She keeps saying to me, "Ask Richard what he wants you to do up at the property." I'm like, "Man, when I go to bed, I'm like, any chance that Richard's going to talking to me in a dream just isn't happening. I'm unconscious." Psychic mother and mystic. She's married to the self-help guru John Demartini, and he was known as Starman. I remember years ago I came up to it was at Wynyard, because I remember getting off the train at Wynyard Station and the doors open and I had this red dress on, all flowy and flouncy with frills, and I stepped out into the platform and all I could see was a sea of grey and corporate. Like, oh God. And I went to see him and I was in about the second row, and he said something like, his opening remark was, "I'm a triple Sag." And I laughed out loud, laughed hard. And he goes, "There's an astrologer in the room." So being married to Athena Starwoman, you're saying, yeah. No, different. I don't think they were married. Doreen Virtue was married to what was her husband's name? I don't think so. I could be wrong, but maybe, but I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, I'm not, like I said, I don't think so, but perhaps. Who knows?
The Star Girl, and his next wife was called something Star Girl.
It is. She is absolutely 100%. Yes, she is. So, interesting guy. So she's got an sister called Planet Janet that still lives in Melbourne. She's an astrologer, and she has 2 astrological columnist nieces. So I can't, and that's just a little link, because I wasn't sure whether you guys share the presentation or not, but I put a link there because I thought Mercury's retrograde. I'm typically known for having clips and songs, and I thought I'm not doing any of that stuff. It's going to be very basic talk tonight, no party tricks, because Mercury retrograde, I'm not going to take the risk. So there's a little clip there. It only goes for about 7 minutes or something, about John Demartini discussing meeting Athena Starwoman. So what happens? Do they get the presentation, or how does that work, Diane? I'm not sure.
What are princess? People pay involved here.
Yeah.
And we need to go on to anyone with the venues.
Okay, so if you pay for the whole year, you get to. So if you get to listen or watch the presentation again, just click on the link and it's embedded. The URL's embedded, and it'll just open up. And you can. It's a really interesting little 5 minutes of discussion about what it was like for him to meet her. I've got another question here, Mr. Melbourne. Oh, you know her very well. Oh, cool. So you know Planet Janet? Is that who you're saying? I'm not sure. So this is Athena's $3 million sea change that was written in the stars. Oh, sorry, just 1 second. Yeah. Oh, Gloria. Sorry, Diane. Gloria Lawrence. Yes. In Melbourne. Okay, and every now and again it gets sleepy. Wake up. She did, Diane. Yeah. I just don't know why it's not changing now. Why aren't you changing? Okay. Athena's career in astrology started after she completed an astrology course in Los Angeles in the 1970s. When she returned to Australia, a journalist wrote a story on her, and she subsequently began writing for the Sydney Daily the Telegraph in Sydney from 1978 to 88. She went to New York she went to New York until September 2001. And following the terrorist attacks on September 11, the couple, her and John, sold their apartment in Trump Tower and came back to Australia. They purchased the $3 million one-bedroom apartment on the first ocean-going luxury resort the world of Reside and See. So you could travel the world, get on and off as you pleased, and have your beautiful luxury apartment. So sun sign astrology is a way that you can earn big bucks. This is big bucks when writing. Like I said, it's a lot of work, but the money's there, and it's regular. Passengers could join or leave the ship as they desired. And so the couple also purchased a luxury apartment in Broadbeach in Queensland. So she was basically based in Australia, and they travelled the world in her luxury. So that actually was the image was the world arriving in Sydney in March 2003. So this book, Athena Star Woman, was one of the books that she wrote. And you can see there the forwards by Deborah Gray. So I found an article which was really interesting titled A Night Out with Athena Star Woman and Her Nieces, the Triple Conjunction, the article was called. Athena Star Woman, who was more inclined to wear Jean Paul Gaultier perfume than patchouli oil. So she didn't give off the flowing robes sort of a vibe of astrology that we sort of tended to have back in the day. I remember when I first started going to psychic fairs with Gary Wiseman, and I would come in with my business attire and my briefcase, and I'd think, oh God, I stick out like a sore thumb. Like it was just not me to have the flowing purple, get up. It's just not me. She was the same, which is interesting because some people that I've spoken to in the community didn't give her a very kind rap. I'm not going to mention any names, but some people did not think she did astrology, that she did anything to help our cause or improve our reputation, is what my feeling was from the people I spoke to. All three contradict the standard hippy-dippy image of those who swear by the planets. They convened monthly for their new moon meditations at a sensible hour of 6 p.m. So again, we're seeing another sun sign astrologer who's playing a lot of importance on the moon. How much importance do you give the moon? How often? Like sometimes I go, oh, what's the moon in? Oh yeah, I'll wear that. Like it's interesting. Honor the moon. At about 6:45, the women moved to the sofas and Miss Starwoman took the phone off the hook and led the meditation, breaking the silence every few minutes to instruct her sister's children to focus on specific goals and messages from the gods and goddesses. So she was very much into the spiritual side of things, but because she didn't outwardly purport to be like that, a lot of people, I think, gave her a bit of a false or bad rap. Okay, she says, the idea is to use the energy of the astrological flow to tune into the moon. The moon connects you to your inner journey. I love that. It's a great quote by Athena Star Woman. Now, that particular book didn't get published until after she died. So she never saw that book go to print. I don't know if she'd like that cover personally, but anyway, that's not. Yeah, I don't know why. It just doesn't look like any of her other books.
It doesn't look like any other stuff.
And it doesn't at all. I think it's totally, and when I read that it actually wasn't published till after she died, then I thought, okay, now I understand. It's the one book to me that stood out that doesn't look like her others. Okay, so here's Athena Star Woman's chart. Again, it's untimed, it's 12 p.m, but I did get her date and her place of birth, but again, X-rated. So don't worry too much about the houses. But what I wanted to say was, so just quickly, let's just have a quick look at it. Jupiter 22 Virgo. She doesn't seem to have she's got Uranus conjunct Venus. Uranus is making an aspect to Saturn. Saturn on the North Node. Again, Saturn's important in her chart. It's in the ninth house, but remember, it's not timed. She's a Cancerian sun. She doesn't seem like a columnist. Athena Starwoman said that, I read the quote that I don't know how she was so popular. Geminis are the liars of the zodiac. I was like, my God. Apologies to any Geminis out there or out here. Like, she made some serious, sorry. Oh, look, we all like to stretch. We all got Gemini somewhere. Come on. We all like to stretch the truth and make, what does my mother say? She says, Christine, you just love to embellish. I'm like, well, why make the story boring if you can make it interesting? So I think, to me, she doesn't seem to have your genuinely typical, what I would expect to see as sun sign astrologer's chart, not compared to all the others, not compared. So Athena Star Woman, and this is her death chart. So what I did notice was astrologer loses fight with Cancer. And again, here is another little snippet, and it goes for about the same length of time, about 6 minutes. John D. Martini speaks on Athena's passing. Now, she didn't want anyone to know. It was kept very hush-hush and private. The media did not know she was so unwell, and the media did not know that she was close to death until a few days. The news broke a couple of days before she actually passed away. So this is an article from, or a headline, sorry, from the Tweed Daily News, dated the 22nd of December 2004, which, like I said, it must have been about the 23rd of December, because it was the next day that Dave Gore rang me and said, Athena Starwoman died yesterday. Why don't you be Christina Stargazer? So I remember that day vividly. So I think, and the interesting thing is, like, there was just this article about her death, but with this obscure looking grassy dirt patch that looked like 4 pallbearers. I thought, how weird. What a strange photo to have. But she did have Saturn on her sun opposing Chiron, and she passed away of breast cancer, and she never had any children. So there's a story in that, but we won't dwell on it. Okay. Yes. So another, like,
Her name, I believe, is Ellen Brown.
okay, yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah, like I said, the more you want to dig, but the problem is, so much information on the net these days is really hard to find. It's not like, you can't Google. I mean, you've got a bit of Wikipedia, but it's just like nothing much, just a little tiny paragraph. It's really hard to find information. So the lady in the Blue Mountains put me onto a thing called Trove. Has anyone heard of Trove? And after I got Trove, oh boy, I haven't had much sleep this week, because it's so fun. There's so much information.
Excuse me. Hi.
Yes.
I'm over here on Zoom.
Yeah.
I've just put there in the chat, just for your reference for the future, Athena's
Oh,
birth.
dang, you knew her very well.
Hey? Yeah.
So it says you knew her very well. Oh my God, that's exciting.
But you've got
I'm
her.
sorry to, yeah, was she a friend?
I used to work with her, and
Oh,
for her.
beautiful.
Yeah, in her psychic phone line business and in her astrology with Women's Day, and I know her husband really well. But I've got her birth time there for you if you wish to use it in the future. So.
Oh, dang, thank you so much. That's so, see what I mean? Divine providence. Thank you so much, Lisa. I really appreciate that. That's
All right.
really exciting. I can alter the chart and be a bit more accurate. That's really lovely. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't
Oh,
be.
now I feel
Would
stars.
have to have been there.
Yeah, dang, yeah. Like I said, I've got a special, because she's my namesake. I've got a special place for Athena in my heart. So I'd love to catch up with you one day. Thank you for sharing that. I love it. Thank you. Okay, so that's exciting. This is what this whole talk and presentation's been like, just one wow after another. Thank you very much, Lisa. I appreciate that. So again, there's a lovely little section there about what John says about her passing. And like, a lot of her family were trying to save her, but she just wanted to pass away in a way that was, she was young, she wasn't old, like her mum must have been in a nursing home or something from what he said. And she didn't want to be like that, which, that's fine. But she didn't have any children. I do think that Sun opposite Chiron, and like she was having a Chiron return, I think. So there was that, and Saturn was opposite Chiron.
can I just throw something in there? If I may?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes,
always,
please.
yeah, she always said that she never wanted to be 60. So,
Yes. Oh, she
and
got
this
to
is,
59.
she was 59 and a half. So,
Yeah.
you know, and this is her quote. It's definitely not my quote because I'm 60. And she said, I never want to be old and ugly. I never want to be 60. And she died when she was exactly
Yeah.
59 and a half. So
Yeah, and I think actually you're right, Dave, because I think John D. Martini says something very similar to that, almost identical. So that's true. And I'm 62, so happy 60th. I love it. Never. It's amazing. Oh, look, oh, God, I thought my mother was 36 and she was old. Anyway, okay, so let's. Who gave her name, Dane?
John Singleton.
Oh, did you really?
Yes.
Oh, that's.
There as well. Yeah.
Did you?
Thanks.
I've forgotten, Dane. Got a memory like a sieve.
Yeah, I was working on the line here on the board, but I'm definitely right.
Oh, with Deborah Holding. I mean, Deborah Gray, sorry. Deborah Gray. Yeah, wow. That's cool. This is really exciting.
And so Dana was actually quite shocked and quite quite sensitive. We all said at the time that she died, the tsunami, that remember the big tsunami. She
Yes.
said, oh, thank God she ever get to know about the tsunami because we knew how badly she was affected by 9/11. So immediately 9/11 happened, she could not live there anymore.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
It's highly sensitive.
Yeah, of course, Diane. And she, like I said, that the reason why she went there in the first place was through a dream. That's what took her to New York. Okay, so again, Jessica Adams. Someone mentioned Jessica, a regular at SARS. She's spoken at SARS. She's spoken at ANSW. She would not be here tonight because Mercury retrograde. She refuses to speak during Mercury retrograde. So Zena can't be here. I'm sorry because Mercury's retrograde. So I took her spot. I love Jessica's work. She does. When I first met Jessica was at the 2002 conference in Sydney. And I remember thinking, this is an astrological conference at a boys' Catholic school. I got to go to that. That is the wildest mix. And so I remember being there and they had a big, you know how they have the stalls and all the stands, and way down the back in the back corner was Jessica Adams. And I spotted her and I knew her and I went down and said hi. And she goes, oh, I feel a bit out of place here. Because to be honest, even back then in 2002, the sun sign astrologers were not seen as real astrologers. Now, let's face it, we've all heard someone say it. They're just sun sign columnists. They don't really know what they're talking about. They just talk, you know. So there's that sort of thing, I think, that sometimes runs through when you're a sun sign columnist, that you're a bit, you know, what did it say? Hippy dippy or whatever it was that reporter used that term. So Jessica, I love her work. She does lots of work she's been to the conferences and now she actually speaks at Sydney and Australian conferences, which I love. She speaks overseas. So she's a regular at SARS and at ANSW. So this is like we're going to a different level now. We've got someone who is very much connected to the net, website, does podcasting, lots of that sort of information sharing. So Jessica says, I was born on the 25th of, this is on her website, 25th of July, 1964. So she's 62 as well on the 25th. We're all 60. Anyone else here 60? Oh, there's another 60. Anyone else? Another 60 up the back. I've got 61, 60 twice. Oh, sold for 60. Excellent. So she was born at 7:08 a.m. in South London when the moon was in Aquarius and the sun was in Leo. That's her quote. So again, Aquarius moon. Love that photo. Okay, so Jessica's chart. Sun opposite moon, full moon. Sun Leo in the 12th house. Her time's right because she's quoted it and I'm giving it an A rating. Sun quincunx Saturn, again a strong Saturn. Sun opposite moon, Aquarian moon. The moon in Mercury and Leo in the first house, opposite Saturn in Pisces. Again, I think that's a strong indication of the discipline that is required. Uranus, Virgo conjunct Pluto, Virgo. It's a generational thing in the first house, opposite Saturn, Pisces, 7th house. Leo ascendant. She's got that flamboyant quality again. Sag rise, Leo rise. You know, to be out there and to be out there to the scale that these guys have been out there, you've got to be able to shine and think on your feet. Like when you're working with media, you're put sometimes in such a position that you've got to be able to There's no room for slow thinking. You've got to be on your feet. Uranus conjunct Mars in Gemini in the 11th house, conjunct the North Node. So transits, Jupiter return, and she's having Uranus and Pluto opposing her natal sun. So Jessica's about to have Pluto opposite her sun coming up. So it'll be like influences from out there will make her deal with that Pluto opposite sun. It's an opposition. Anyone see anything else that's of any interest or?
She's had her Saturn return.
She's had her Saturn return. I wonder why, how do you know that, Karen? It's a wonderful thing. Hers is in her 7th house, which is interesting. So just with Jessica, if anyone is interested, she's going to be in town in June 2024. So Jessica and Stephanie Johnson of Solar Fire fame are going to be hosting high teas in Sydney on the at 2 p.m. on the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 29th. And in true, typical stargazer style, I'll probably take a group, i.e., of my students, and we might go and have high tea with Jessica. I think that sounds like a fun thing to do on a Saturday afternoon. Okay, how are we going for time, everybody? Oh, you're beautiful. Excellent. That's good, Dave. Good. I'm just trying to, keep an eye on the time. So they're the upcoming events. If you're interested in any of those events, I would recommend that you jump on. You've got it like it's Meetup, and then you've got to answer a question or something, and I forget how I did it, and then they let you become a member, and then you can see the information. But just put Jessica Adams, Stephanie Johnson, Meetup, and the information comes up, and have high tea. The last people I had high tea with in Sydney were Julia and Derek Parker. That was fun. Again, I've got both their details, but not sun sign astrologers, but very same thing. Strong Saturn. Look at the books they've written. Strong Saturns, Aquarius, Gemini, Leo, Sag. You've got all those similar themes running through every chart that I looked at. Okay, so does anyone remember Jonathan Cainer? And like, hail Jonathan Cainer. And, I remember reading those sun signs he did in the Daily Telegraph, and I'd be like, oh, God, that's so cryptic. And I remember once when I used to do the stars I used to write the stars for a magazine called Big League. It was a football magazine, and I wasn't allowed to show bias in any way. So that's really hard. And they said to me, you're more cryptic than Jonathan Cainer. I was like, well, give me some room here. I want to be able to make some predictions, but I wasn't allowed. I had to be very careful that I wasn't favouring one team or another. So it was I did it for a couple of years. It was a very interesting gig. And after doing it, I thought, why aren't my systems working? Because I like doing numerology as well. And I couldn't figure it out. And I thought every round I would get like 8 out of 8, 8 out of 8, 8 out of 8. And then I'd get like 6 out of 8. I'm like, why isn't this working? But then I found out they were doing match fixing. And I was like, bye-bye. Because you can't win when you're dealing with that sort of stuff. So all that came out in the media. And I thought, okay, now I know why my theories aren't working. It's not me. I can add up. It's all good. So Jonathan Cainer was a British astrologer who they say predicted his own death. Like, I don't know if I would want to be known for that, but that's what he's known for. Seriously, he is. He was the highest paid journalist in Great Britain, record history. Beat everyone. Cainer was working as a seasoned musician, another musician. There were quite a few. When an acquaintance read his birth chart for him, he was amazed how accurately it summed him up, and he went on to study with the Faculty of Astrological Studies. That's in the UK. So in 1986, Cainer was approached once more. He'd been approached before on several occasions from the tabloids to write a sun sign column, and he said, no, thank you. I want to do it to the depth. I want depth. I want to do like full astrological charts. So they assured him that he would also have a chance to introduce his readers to the deeper side of the subject. So Cainer took on the post, and his column proved a great success. Now, I have not seen a newspaper for, I can't remember how many years. And last Monday, I went to the local IGA because I just needed to pick up a few things. And they said to me, would you get a free paper? I was like, sure. Anyway, it was the paper that he used to write for. And I thought, I wonder who's writing the stars now for the paper. Well, lo and behold, it's his relative, yeah. So here's Jonathan Cainer's chart. Again, this is an accurately timed chart. 18th of December 57. He was born in London at 8 a.m. So the time's accurate. Sun rising, Saturn rising. Isn't it interesting, like to see an 8 a.m. chart and the sun's just coming up? I'd be like, geez, here in this country, oh man, we wait all day for the sun to come up. 8 o'clock, yawn. My day's half over by 8 o'clock. So Saturn rise, Moon in Scorpio, Mars in Scorpio. Again, that Jupiter, a packed 11th house. North node with Neptune is interesting. What do we know about North node Neptune? Mysticism, yep, okay. All right. Uranus opposite Venus. There's your money story. Saturn ruling the second. There's your money story again. I still think a strong Saturn rise. It's in Sag here. What else did I like about that chart? There are a number of things that are interesting to me, but they're the main things that stood out. Anything else stand out for anybody? Saturn in the 12th, yes, yeah. It's in its joy in the 12th, absolutely. So they're the sort of things you're looking for. Planets in their joy, planets with strength. Sure, my
Christine,
internet's
Sun
stable.
conjunct the galactic center.
Sun conjunct the galactic center. Yeah, thanks, Anne. Absolutely. 100%. So, as we know, Jonathan Cainer predicted his own death. So in the Daily Telegraph, he wrote, or they wrote, sorry, legendary astrologer Jonathan Cainer, who died suddenly this week, age 58 again, on his Saturn return. So we can check out our Saturn return. It's like, oh, this is all just too hard. Got to hang in there, kids, if you want to get to your third one. Sorry, yeah?
Granddaughter. What's that? Insurance cost before he dies, I think, needs to amount of money to
Cool.
go to his relatives.
Oh, wow. I don't know how I'd feel about that. Like I said, it's a real ethical and moral dilemma. Like when we teach when I teach astrology, we have a good conversation about that. Like some people have no problem telling you you're going to lose a leg. Whereas I'm like, why would I need to know that? Like I've got 4 children. I'm not keen for that. Like seriously, it's definitely a personal bent, but it's a moral and ethical dilemma for me. So he even predicted his own demise. His forecast for his own sign, Sagittarius, for the day of his death read, "We're not here for a long time, for very long, so make the most of every moment." I've got a Sagittarius, and I'm like, my motto is, we're not here for a long time, we're here for a good time. So you have to make every minute count. So a similar thing, that's what he wrote on the day that he passed away. So he would have written that. I said to Karen coming up, the problem when you're writing sun sign stuff, and Molly, you probably know it too, I'm always ahead of myself. So I get up in the morning, I think, oh, that's right. Oh, yeah. And I write a whole post about some bloody transit, and I think, oh, God, that's in May. We're not there yet. So I have to I'm always out of sync sometimes because my head's, I've written April stars 6 weeks ago. I've done that. This April's long gone in my world.
Interesting.
Yes.
Curious to know how.
They didn't actually say, absolutely didn't say that. And that was just I found it was a report by the Daily Mail that's what they said. But I actually have, it's somewhere in my haphazard filing computer. I've got the actual clip. I remember screen grabbing it and taking it out, and that's how I knew that that's what he was known for. So one day I'll find it and I'll let you know, Lawrence. Okay, you'll be the first person and I will remember. I've got a good memory for some things. So Cainer had 6 children. In the 1990s, his first wife was killed suddenly in a car crash, leaving him alone to care for his young children. On May the 2nd, 2016, he was found dead in his home by his second wife, Sue, of a suspected heart attack. An inquest found that he had taken cocaine shortly before his death. The cardiotoxic effects of which may have contributed to his heart attack. An open verdict was returned. So, an open verdict just means that it was not conclusive, but there was cocaine. He'd taken cocaine, which I thought, oh man, no wonder he was so wildly cryptic. It's like that was wild. And sorry, 100%. like, it's crazy to think. Like, I was quite shocked when I read that because it's not what I knew of him. So no judgment. I don't make judgment of people. We all got a story. But seriously, it tells me why he was so out there with his predictions. I think maybe it could have attributed or contributed to that. And like, yeah, I was a bit shocked when I read that. I have to be honest. I was like, oh wow. So like I said, it's been a roller coaster ride of a week. So following Cana's death, his nephew Oscar Cana, whom Jonathan trained as his successor, again like Athena Starwoman, had someone to pass the astrological baton on to in the family. My kids were interested when they were younger, and then they were keen as teenagers. Like, Mum, can you look in your almanac and tell me where my keys are or where my wallet is? Or have you found my laptop yet? Or can you find the cat? Like, that they were just interested to that level. But yeah, so none of my children will ever take over from me, I can promise you that. So he took over the newspaper column and the astrology website. And like I said, in my briefcase, I have got the Daily Telegraph that I received on Monday this week, and he's in it. And I was going to read it. I thought it did read something that was really pertinent for me at the time. Jonathan Cana and his death. Now, again, like I said, that North Node Neptune speaks something of our final, our exit strategy is our North Node. I've got an 8th house node, so doing horror astrology is wonderful for me because I'm always losing things. Saturn return, as someone else pointed out. Pluto going through his first, you'd have to look at his progress chart, but I just thought, because, when you've got a date and a time, how many times have you got, like, as astrologers, how can you not, when you've got a time, a date, and a place, you just got to do a chart. It's like a prerequisite to living. So this is a famous mundane astrologer. Now, I'm sure Ed wrote another person who came here regularly, and I put, this is just my words, he's the astrologer that's most loved and missed for us. And I have got Ed's birth data, and I put it in and I took it out. And I put it in and I took it out. And I put it in and I took it out. He did share it with us at the Wollongong group one time when he was down there, but I felt like it was disrespectful because I haven't actually checked with his partner. So I took it out. But the reason why I put Ed's chart in was because the reason I got into astrology was because of this lovely man. And in the early 1990s, my granddad said to me, you got to listen to this guy on 2GB. His name is Ed Tamplin. And my name's Ted Catlin. Don't you think they sound the same? I was like, not really, but I'll listen. So with 4 little kids, Saturday night, here I am in bed at 9 o'clock. They're all in bed, thank God. Got me a cup of tea, and Ed and Steve Murphy are on the radio. And so I started to really get into Ed's stuff, and I loved it. And then when I finally met him and I was going to conferences with him, I was like, God, again, starstruck. Like, Ed was such a huge person for me getting into astrology. Like, he was amazing. And there's not a day goes past, seriously, that I go to a meeting in Sydney and someone will say, we so miss Ed. We so miss his orbits articles. We so miss his predictions. We so miss his wonderful articles. So I'm sure he did sun sign work at some point, I'm sure, but Ed is much more well known for his mundane predictive technique as far as world affairs. Like I said, guys generally do this stuff more than girls that I've noticed. That's just a generalisation. That's bad, I know, but that's what I've noticed. So hail and veil Sid. God, Ed.
Chris, he had the rooms double ring down. He had to order the double ring.
Yes, it was packed. And I remember one time at ANSW, he came and he forgot his thumb drive. He did the whole presentation from his memory.
Yeah.
Oh, it was amazing. He's such an amazing man. Again, strong Aquarius energy, strong Gemini energy, strong 9th house. All the same things in every chart. Like I said, I've taken it out of the presentation. So this brings me to this lovely. So this is what started it all way back in November. And I sent Cheryl a message and said, hey, have you heard of this June Marsden? She's Australia's first celebrity astrologer in Sydney in 1937. I'm like, SARS was born in 1938. Don't tell me she had nothing to do with SARS at the beginning. And Cheryl looked and we all tried to find out things, found nothing. Thank you to my beautiful new friend in the Blue Mountains. I looked on Trove. Oh my God. I looked on Trove, not yesterday, the day before. So I found out information 2 days ago. So I was like, have anyone seen that cat? It was me. So this is beautiful June Marsden. Again, name change. And what I found out, I found an article. She wrote "Written in the Stars" was the name of her column. I had no idea. My presentation was called "Written in the Stars" long before this. I found this information. And she wrote for the Australian Women's Weekly again for 25 years. I think it was 25. So she wrote the Australian Women's Weekly from the mid-30s to 1949. So from 1949 to when Richard Sterling started, there's a little gap that I haven't been able to find out, but like another week and I'll know. But there's that little gap of who wrote for the Australian Women's Weekly. She spent time in the US. Now, back in the 30s, that was a precarious time in the world. And to be, flip-flapping around the world. She was a socialite. She lived in Sydney, but in, the North Shore or somewhere, I'm not sure. She was born in Glebe in the 1890s. There's that same time as William that taught Richard Sterling, born at the same time. Her father was a stonemason and a sculptor after World War One. And I think he did a lot of the war, not the war memorials that not the war memorials. What are the things that the cenotaph and all those sort of things? He did a lot of those. I'm sure, like I said, if I could research longer, I'd find more information. She wrote a book titled "Follow Your Stars to Success." She was born, 1926. Why did I put that there? That must have been when she wrote the book. I'm sorry, I don't remember. I was just writing stuff down. And I'll get to that in a second. So her husband also believed in the stars. So there was a crossed star match, as they call it. He was a Royal Naval aviator in World War One. Her real name was Erica Ingram Moore. So again, we see another a change of name. She went, and the reason why she went to June Marsden was because there was something about having A, R, D, E, and N in your name or something. She believed that obviously the numerology she was looking at perhaps of the name. So she likened astrology to radio waves, which I sometimes feel a bit, I can relate to that. You've got that beep, 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 beep. Sorry? Yeah, it's sign of Aquarius, absolutely. And she had a career on 2GB. So I was like, oh, so did Ed. There's a connection there. It's like, oh, wow, this is cool. So, and there's a little link again to the clip there that's by the New South Wales State Library, and they're interviewing someone about her life. It goes for about maybe half an hour, a bit more. It's very interesting if you want to click on that. Okay, so then I found this. Government must rid Australia of these wicked frauds. And I saw Marsden. I was like, oh my God, astrologers waxing fat on their dupes. I was like, oh my God, found information. I was beside myself. I hardly slept. It was called, that's the headline of the article, Gentle June Marsden, President of the Australian Astrological Research Society. I was like, bingo! Woo, I found it. So SARS was actually called the Australian Astrological Research Society. Did we know that, members? Okay. So, and it says, did you even hear the like? So I've put in the whole article. So this was a magazine or a paper that was in Sydney called Smith's. It was an early newspaper. And it says, Smiths exposed her phony science. She protested rather lamely that astrology was a science during the Women's Weekly session of 2GB. So she must have written for the stars, written for Australian Women's Weekly, but then she did a star program on 2GB. And she must have maybe read her stars out or something. it says on the other Sunday. So the way they wrote articles was just amazing. Said June, all great scientists agree that radiatory influences from the moon affect the Earth. Astrology shows that the moon affects our mental processes, our emotions, and the circulation of our blood. Now the moon causes the oceans to rise and the tides and fall in the tides. If the moon can affect that amount of water, surely it can also affect the blood, which is nothing more than coloured water. So good old, this is what they say about her, good old witch doctor raving that one would have to be influenced by the moon as lunatics, surely supposed to believe such utter rot. But there, dear readers, is the Marsden method of scientific proof. It is quite as idiotic as astrology itself. So they went on to rag her about bunkum, I love that word, and they claimed that she was like just sheer blasphemy. Like that, it was, I just put the whole thing. I couldn't understand what this, they called her a dizzy lass, and it's hard to read the article because it's sort of like some of it's hard to read. So there's some words in there that don't make sense. I fold, I don't know what that is. So she talked about being on 2GB. She talked about the Woman's Weekly and the blatant charlatanism. In 1939, she goes on and talks about all the stuff. So it says, poor old Arthur D. Dion. Now, he was the guy that started SARS in Sydney. And he said they referred to him as the boss witch doctor of Dion's monthly astrology. D. Dion's, yeah, is really angry. He was angry at Smith's, the newspaper, for the exposure of the game from which he earns his daily bread. It's probably white bread because wholemeal builds up brain power. Like, this is an article that was in a newspaper, for goodness sake. So Arthur is the character who says on his letterheads that he has looked at the stars so long that he no longer is afraid of them. So that's progress for you, says it's a really funny article. And it goes on and on and on and on. So put the whole article in there because I thought if anyone wants to look at it, you can. I put a reference to it as well so you can research it. But when I look at the stars, this is what Arthur wrote. Now, I found it interesting. She was the president and he was the founder, but yet there's no information about her anywhere. And I said to Cheryl, I knew in my heart of hearts that she would have to have been involved. I think because she was a socialite at the time. And they do go on in that article to talk about, how she made a prediction, or someone made a prediction that between September and October 1939, it was going to be a peaceful time. And that's when war broke out. So they were like, well, that was a crap, that was bad. So he wrote, I felt it should be a society bound closely together by ties of spiritual beauty, that it should in no sense be parochial, and that its membership should include students from every corner of the earth. I felt that the stranger in our own land, he felt like, So basically this, I think, was formed because back in that time, they were getting a pretty hard rap. Imagine being an astrologer back in the 30s. That must have been a nightmare. But thank God I worked it out because I felt really strongly about her being involved in SARS. I felt really strong about it and I found it. Well done. Thank you, my new friend in the Blue Mountains. So what I also noticed, and which is what Frank Clifford talked about in the beginning, is the importance of having, it's just gone 8:30 and I'm nearly finished. Is that all right? So the importance of knowing your person, chief editor-in-chief. So again, there was such synastry. Look at that 28 degrees new moon of Ida Buttrose, 28. It all lined up with all those other 27 and 28s in the other charts of the people that wrote in the Australian Women's Weekly. So you have to have some synastry or a lead-in, as Frank Clifford says, to astrology. Now, for me, writing the Your Day by the Stars, what fascinated me was, you guys would all remember a magazine called Horoscope that was written by Ray Webb. And I remember going to Ray's funeral because in the Blue Mountains, because I wanted to talk to him about, I wanted to talk to his family. Sorry, Ray. I wanted to talk to his family about what was happening with the magazine because I really wanted to take it over. I didn't want it to finish. It was such a fun magazine to read, and one that you could buy in newsagents. And so the family were like not interested in doing anything with it after he passed away. So after he died, Julia Parker wrote Your Day by the Stars, which was a radio script that now I write and have been writing since 2020. I find it fascinating that found out recently that Ray Webb wrote Your Day by the Stars, which is what I write now, for 29 years. He did the radio scripts. So they go around the country. It's a national radio script. I just write them. When it was the local radio station, I used to record them at home. And I said to the radio station, I'm not going to the station. I've got 4 kids. What do you think I am? So they brought I had all the recording equipment in my home. I used to sit downstairs and I'd go, Aries. Oh, you're not going first today. Pisces. I was bored. Writing them is one thing, but then reading them and be like, Aries, oh shit, we'll have to start again. I would constantly, it was not for me, but doing it this way is fun. I get to write the scripts, I get to be creative in my words, and I get to use my astrology, and somebody else in the production company records it for me and they go out around the country. So I find it fascinating. Again, there's that connection back to the Blue Mountains. There's something about that whole area. I think about Ed, Linda Hill. Lots of astrologers live on the Blue Mountains. There's a lot of people. But they all of the astrologers that wrote for the Women's Weekly all had very good synastry with Ida Buttrose. Now, Ida is also she's just had Pluto go over her sun moon. Where's Uranus in Ida's chart? Yeah, it's in the 2nd. And where is it transiting? She's having a Uranus return. And it's going over her Saturn. Again, Uranus, Saturn. I see that in all those people. It's a generational thing, but they're all getting it. Be interesting to see. She might retire finally. Maybe not. Okay. Oh, there's so many messages up here. So the last thing I just want to finish on was 2GB. So because the people that organised SARS, it all started through the Theosophical Society. And there's all that connection back to 2GB. So 2GB commenced intermittent broadcasting in August 1926, just a month after Richard Sterling was born. The operator, the Theosophical Broadcasting Station Pty Limited, owned by interests associated with the local branch of the Theosophical Society, ADJA, we've all been to the ADJA bookshop, I'm sure, was granted radio broadcasting licence for the Sydney area. The station launched the Macquarie Radio Network in February 1938. When did SARS start? 1938.
Yeah.
In competition with major network started by fellow Sydney station 2UE. In 1940, the station became the largest producer of radio drama programs in the Southern Hemisphere. During World War II, 2GB provided transcription records to the Australian Army network of radio stations in Papua New Guinea and the Pacific Islands. So in World War II, my grandfather, who introduced me to Ed Tamplin, was in the radio rooms in Papua New Guinea and the Pacific Islands. So there was just this one constant circle of coincidences from the start of this talk to the very end. So on that note, do you have what it takes to become a sun sign columnist? Make at least one major accurate prediction. You need to have a prediction that comes true. That's a good start. Find ways to get your stuff out there. Like obviously these days we've got the net, we've got podcasts, we've got lots of other things other than just the tabloids. But still, Jonathan Kainer's nephew is probably more well known than any of us. Okay, so still to this day, I think the tabloids are the one way that you get more famous or more successful in an astrological world. Find a connection to the editor-in-chief. you have synastry with, or someone you know in the business or the game. Yeah, so know someone in the business. Gemini, Aquarius, third house, ninth house, prominent, strong Saturn or Uranus. Astrolocality, you'd be looking at astrolocality, you know, that whole idea of you might not have to live somewhere to be able to write. Obviously, we're in Australia and Jonathan Cainer's nephew does not live here. Have a faith in something greater than ourselves. And this whole presentation today has really made me realise the synchronicity of all this is just astounding. So just to finish, the top 10 astrologers in the world today, and I love that we've met some of them. Jonathan Cainer, even though he's dead, is still up there as number 3 on the list. Yasmin Boland is up there. We've hosted her in Wollongong. She's local. She's an Aussie. We love her. These other ones I don't know. Stephen Forrest has done lots of work here. Most of us know Stephen. So that's the top 10. If you don't see your name up there, you've got to try a little harder. But I'd like to say thank you to everyone online. There's a couple of messages here. Wonderful to hear this SARS history. Thank you, Roz. I appreciate that. What else have we got? Some more comments. I don't know how to go up, back up. Oh, yeah, this is gold. Lol. Thank you. Sadly missed by astrology family. Yes, Ed, we miss him. He's a great legacy. Yay, Ed. Yeah, love Ed. Heard him speak in Sydney, very entertaining. So thank you everyone online. I really appreciate you zooming in, and thank you everyone for coming out and breaking the drought and being back in person. Any questions? Does anyone have any questions in the audience, or have I haven't bored them to you?
Do we ever have a date of birth?
Diane, look, I'm sure there's, now that I've got onto that, like, and even the lady in the Blue Mountains, because I said to her, look, you don't, his second wife is still alive. I said, listen, can you call her and ask her when he was born? Surely an astrologer would let his wife know. And oh, I've got a strong ringing in my ear. Sorry, Richard. Anyway, she said, look, I had to actually read through lots of things on Trove, and it was that lovely lady in the Blue Mountains that actually found his date of birth. So it's such a lot of work to research. Richard Sterling. I'm talking about Richard. Arthur Dion Day, like I said, same thing. There'll be so much information embedded in all those early stories, I'm sure. But like, I was just so excited when I found that information. Boy, to hear what we get out of it. But we now know that lovely June Marsden, and if you do nothing else after you go home, just Google June Marsden and famous astrologer, and listen to that beautiful interview that they do about her. It is amazing to know that. Sorry, that one I sent you. Yeah, it was. Yes, yeah, it was really good. I'd really thoroughly recommend that you listen to it if you want to understand a bit more about the.
When Joe Bajelki was in Queensland, you could be held up for witchcraft.
Oh, so sorry, Ros, you know June Marsden. I will never forget. Yes. Okay, so there's someone here that, I love that. Oh, no, she's saying no. June Marsden, you'll never forget the name. Yeah, so we've got her to thank, I'm sure, her and Arthur. And I'm not sure why she's not included in any historic records of SARS, but I hope my legacy is to SARS is that we get that included, because I think it's really important information that's real and true. And I'd love to do more research. No pressure, everybody. I'd love to do more, but we're a research society. That's what it's all about. And I honestly think that the more we dig, I'd love to know why it was called Australian Astrological Research Society. When did it become Sydney Astrological Research Society? Anyway, that's all I'll leave you with, everyone. Thank you for coming. Sorry. Yeah, I know, only just. Okay, thank you everyone online. I appreciate you coming. Can we share?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank
That
you.
was really interesting.
Oh, thank you.
Stop sharing.
Okay, stop sharing. Oh, yeah. Hi, everybody. Okay, stop recording. Okay, and stop recording. Okay, beautiful. All right. Yay. Cheers, Lisa. Thank you everyone for joining. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Everyone's found really
I hope you're entertained. Like flamboyant style.
and informative.
Can I
A
ask
bit
you
more entertaining.
a question,
No,
Christine?
Sorry, Jane.
So,
Sorry, I
H
can't
Naylor
hear.
here. I just wanted to know what made you get interested. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm just wondering why you got interested in sidereal astrology.
Jane, because I think, sorry guys, I just got a question on from the Zoom. Someone asked me why I'm interested in sidereal astrology, because a couple of reasons. Like, just personally, I know I'm an Aquarian, but I don't break rules. I'm very much more. So when you start to look at your charts sidereally, wind your chart back and just have a look and be honest in your judgment of that, because I truly believe, and I haven't had time to research it, but I certainly will, is that I believe both of them are significant and both of them play an important part in our lives. One is real, one is maybe what we want to. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't done enough research yet, but I will get back to you on what my thoughts are about that. But I totally believe that there's something in our sidereal charts that's true and real for us. And that's it doesn't really answer my question, but that's where I'm at with sidereal, 100%.
Thank you.
Because the other thing, darling, is when sorry?
Sorry, no, I just said, look, I understand I changed over years ago, but I just was wondering what made you change over.
Well, Jane, what actually made me change was when Uranus was going through Aquarius, and being an Aquarian, I watched it really closely. I didn't actually see anything happen in the outer world. Same as with Pluto and Capricorn. Okay, so it's gone through Capricorn, but now it's going through Capricorn proper. And now we're seeing some big stuff go down. So same with, that whole Tesla stuff and all the wind farms and all that really took off when Uranus went into sidereal Aquarius, like massive. And you've got to remember, you've got to make up that little bit of, you can't just wind everything back 23 degrees. You've got to work out when you were born. There's a mathematical little like a little extra you need to add on for each of you, because at the time you were born and your sidereal time, you'll notice in your ephemeris it changes. So you've got to work out that little mathematical calculation to find out exactly what your degree is.
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of astrologers who do sidereal are working with or in the families of big industrialists and people who are making changes in this world. For instance, Elon Musk's one of his wife, she does sidereal astrology, and if they're doing electional charts for when to start things and they're using sidereal, that would explain why things happen then.
100%, Jennifer, I totally agree. You need to look at both, because sometimes I'll look at my chart sidereally and I'll look at it tropically, and when it happens I'll think, oh, this is going to be on that today, this is what I expect to happen, and it doesn't happen. But then when I look at it sidereally, it happens on the money. Like, it's much more accurate, I think, as a timing thing. So that's it, everybody. Thank you very much. I really appreciate everyone coming along.
Thank you.
See everyone. It's nice to see you all. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
You.
Bye.
Bye.